Folks, as we start, I'd like us all to just take a moment to send a good vibe message, a wish, if you like, to our new Lord Mayor. There's a photo of him here. I don't know what's actually going on in the photo. It looks like he's struggling in some way, so something's going on for him. So maybe he could use a little compassion as he goes about his business. I suspect he's going to pick up his bat and storm off and go home at some point before the next 4 years is up. But anyway, we can live in hope. In the meantime, the other thing that I've got up here is a quote. So this is him yesterday in the paper, suggesting that his time has been bogged down with dealing with entry to swimming pools when he's got this $20 million deficit thing going on. And I suggest that what we see here is some evidence of him having his priorities around the wrong way. So he's really fixated on this deficit nonsense. But from where we're coming from with the Save Mayfield Swimming Pool campaign, we're all about this city and our community and the community infrastructure that we have and what it means to be living here. I'm going to circulate, as I'm speaking, some glorious images of mosaics, and we'll come to this during the talk too. Many of them are double-sided, so that's just crazy printing on my part. But if you just have a look at them, I think you'll find that they're interesting, and we'll hear a little bit more about the story of them too as we're going through here. So my claim is that he has his priorities around the wrong way, and I think what's going on for him is that he's adopted a financial framing for the pool issue and access to pools and so on. And that's one way, I guess, that you can tell a story about such an important piece of infrastructure, community infrastructure as a pool, whether it's Mayfield Pool or any of the other pools in the city. And we have a different way of telling the story about that place. What he's referring to here specifically is in the lead up to the recent council election, we campaigned for free entry to all of the local pools in the Newcastle local government area. Actually, not all of them. The Ocean Baths and Merriweather Baths have been free forever, I understand.
In the 50s, so paid to go and do it.
How about that? Okay. But there's this other kind of pool that council calls inland pools. So there's an inland pool at Stockton, so that's not a very inland pool. But Mayfield Pool, my local pool, is one. Lambton, Beresfield and Wallsend are the other ones. So they're the ones that we're talking about. So that's his way of telling the story from yesterday. And then from last week, here's a headline and a photo out of the Newcastle Herald. And so this is at Mayfield Pool. This is Georgie here and Lotus's brother. And they're having a play. And so the headline is Free Thinking. So, you know, if you're a sub-editor, you need to come up with a pun for your headline story, and so that's what's happened there. And this is the way that we're seeing this place and the way that we're telling the story about this place. And the free thing is really important, and it's important because if we have so-called public infrastructure but the community can't access it, then in a sense we don't have it at all. And over the past couple of years, what we've seen is that the entry price at Mayfield Pool and other pools has more than doubled. So it was a couple of bucks a couple of years ago, and now it's close to $5. And people might think, oh, well, you know, people can pay that and so on. It really is just $5. But on the other hand, this season, I haven't seen any African kids.
3 or 4 kids.
Right. And I haven't seen any African kids at the pool this summer, for example. And so if you go and talk to council officers, they'll say it's all about the weather, you know, like we have a good season, a poor season and all the rest of it. But obviously the pricing is really important too. And if we're excluding people in our community from access to places like this, well, I don't think the intention is racist, but the outcome potentially is. And it's certainly classist. And that's why it's important. And so this story today is about how we got here. And my involvement only goes back to 2007, so I feel like a bit of a blow-in, particularly in this room. But we can go a little bit back a little earlier, and this is with thanks to Johnny over there and the Cultural Collections folks.
And that came from Vera, that map.
Came from Vera. All right, well, then it's thanks to Vera. So this is an old map of Mayfield, and you can see various streets and so on. The thing I want to point out to you here is Shell Beach. And so this is Mayfield with some waterfront.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't remember this.
We've lost it all.
Right. And so this bit of waterfront here is filled in the 50s, I think, and then BHP gets that land in a switcheroo for the land that Newcastle Uni is now on, out of Callaghan. Alright, so Mayfield has a water hole, and then it doesn't have a water hole. And then it's in that context that we hear a story about BHP gifting a pool to the community. Okay, so that's the background for that particular event there. And so we see it here described as an £80,000 gift, and by the time it opens in '66, it's a $160,000 gift because there's a change in currency. And so here we have the opening day of the pool. So there's a bunch of folks in the pool. That's pretty much all there is to say about that. And fast forwarding then to 2007, and I'm sorry about the quality of this one up here, but council at that point hires some consultants to come and tell them a story about how to rationalise blah 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 pools. And the upshot is close a pool, Mayfield pool, and turn Lambton into some mega centre, some regional quality swimming centre, yada yada kind of thing. And so there's total uproar, and my background is in activism on international human rights and environmental justice and international finance and bilateral aid programs and all that kind of stuff, and you know, like starving kiddies, and it's like whatever. We're closing the local pool, and people just go feral about it. And so at this event here, this is outside of the town hall, and everyone's turned up in their swimmers and goggles and all the rest of it, just having a total uproar kind of day. We had public meetings that were initially scheduled at the pool, but then there's too many people, and so everyone had to tramp up the road up to Mayfield East Public School and having enough school pool there and so on. And so that's the trigger, I guess, if you like, for this latest campaign to save Mayfield swimming pool, because it's happened before as well. So it's a response to that plan to close Mayfield pool, to sacrifice it, if you like, so that Lambton pool can be made even bigger and better. And that's a $25 million project, something like that, which somehow seems strangely almost equivalent to the deficit that this council seems to be in. So what's going on there? But anyway, for us, for the pool service delivery model, that's a finance story. So that's about balance sheets and so on. But for us, it's about a social justice story. The pool is important for community health, for well-being generally. And so this is a campaign that, as well as attracting support from individuals in the local community, it's also attracted broad support from organisations. So unions have been very strongly backing this campaign. There was a schools coalition as well, comprising public schools and Catholic schools and private schools. And then small businesses in the local Mayfield area got behind it, and then so did big businesses too. This is a fella from Tollport, Waratah, and this is me accepting a $10,000 cheque. We didn't arrange this. And this is Kate, my friend, and right afterwards she said, "So do you feel dirty?" this was something that the council had organised, and I mean, we were a bit cross about it because we had to sort of just turn up and look good and accept this cheque.
Did you hire the business suit?
Oh no, I had a suit, that's it. It's for occasions like this, Kate. And so, but the message is important though. The breadth of that support, frankly, was quite extraordinary. So it's a unifying thing in a way at that time. And what we've got there is a clash of stories, if you like. So there's that finance story that the council officers particularly are putting up, and their consultants through their consultants and so on. And then there's us telling our story about the benefits and the values and the way that the community values the pool. So the pool has values, and we as a community value that pool. And through the period, so it's conflictual in 2007 as represented here, and then this is in 2009, and so it's more about working together and so on. And we have had some major wins with the campaign. For example, in this period, we get solar heating at the pool, and that's what this $10,000 was towards. We also get a new playground at the pool. We get large shaded areas so that it's fab for schools doing their swimming carnivals and so on. All the kids can sit out of the sun and so on. So there are these improvements, and our campaign call, if you like, is improve it, don't remove it. And so we're working in that direction. But then in more recent years, so say last year, for example, year before, and particularly now, my sense is that we're heading back towards some conflict. And so this clash of stories is still happening. and it looks like it might be on again. And so I guess there's a sense there that with this issue, and perhaps with other ones as well, and maybe this is interesting when we're thinking about radicalism and so on, these things are never perhaps truly resolved, that there's a tension there, that there might be stability for a while, things are this particular way, but then things can shift quite suddenly and then be a different way. And I would suggest that with this last election campaign, where we now have a public discourse or public discussion around this idea of free entry, and loads of people are like, yeah, that's a great idea, and many more are like, no, that's crazy. Well, this is a discussion that we couldn't have had back in 2007. So this is a shift that we've seen through the work of this campaign. And so just to kind of make that really clear, in terms of telling those stories, one thing that we've done is talk about our pool. So we always talk about it as being our pool. This is our pool and we want this, or we don't want that, or you're crazy, or whatever it is. But we talk about our pool as though it belongs to the community. And that's how we think about it, that it belongs to the community. But you won't find council officers talking about the community's pool. They'll talk about councils inland pools, and they'll mean 5 pools and all of them, and they treat them all the same, or they try to. Where our interest is in this particular pool. And so what they see and what they say when they see the pool is a financial liability. Oh my God, we've just got to pile money into that day after day after day. Instead, what we're focusing on here is how it's a community asset, how it's a public space, it's a place where diverse people in the community can come together and interact as a community. And if we want a community that is like that, then we're going to need places like this, where people can interact in these ways. Right? And then there's public health, so everyone's heard of childhood obesity epidemic, and it's all about this kind of stuff and so on. And here's this fabulous asset. You cannot be in a pool and not move around unless you're dead. Which brings me to water safety. But there's also the fun element too.
Of watching the dead people.
Right. So there's also the fun element too. And so that's what our campaign is about, pushing that story and it's butting up against that other story. So we see how that changes over time. So we've done a lot of lobbying and so on, but the other thing that's really important, I guess, and this is where the pictures that you've got there come into it. This is a project that we've had going since 2008, if you can believe it, and this is a community mosaic. And so there's a couple of layers to this. Let me just show you a couple of things that are going on. This is a workshop where we're smashing up donated tiles, so that's pretty good fun. You need hammer and glasses, and we've got all the safety gear. And then this is installation here, but well before these two things are happening, we've got workshops happening in local schools, primary schools and high schools and so on, where kids are doing designs. And the designs are doing like stories, if you like, about what the pool means for them. Okay, and that's where we get these designs from, and they're just extraordinary. My younger fella did this one here, but they're all good. And so the way this is working on a couple of layers is, well, you can see here that we're beautifying the place. So the space is actually extraordinarily gorgeous. It's got this rolling lawn, and it's just amazing. And then this long, low wall was pretty nasty. But now it's looking amazing. We're just about done 2, maybe 3 more days, and then we're done then. So we're beautifying that space. But as we do that, we're showing that we're valuing that place. We're valuing that place. And then the other thing that's going on here is, in the course of engaging the community in creating this artwork, which is then installed and becomes part of the furniture there, our intention is that over time, through that process, we support we foster even greater outrage for the next time the council wants to come and close the pool, because they've done this before and we know they will do it again. Okay, so for my fella, for example, he sees this here, and that's installed right there. No, sorry, it's not installed there, but it is now. It's on the wall. And so for him, this pool now becomes a place not just with all those other values that it had already held for him, but it's also a place where he has contributed to an artwork. And the idea of closing that down, I think, will encourage him to be even more outraged should that idea come up again. So there's a couple of layers to that, I guess. Lastly then, this question, has Mayfield Pool been saved yet? So this is a question that comes up so often in the community and elsewhere. And I think it's a really good question, but in some ways it's not the right question when we're thinking about this kind of stuff. And it might be Mayfield Pool, or it could be whales, or whatever it might be. So this idea that we might actually save things, like saving the whales or whatever, I think that's not working for us. Rebecca Solnit makes this point. Things are either lost to us or they remain to be defended. And so that's living things like whales and forests and whatever it might be. It's also important social infrastructure things like Mayfield Pool, and I bet you could rattle off a bunch of other things, places around this town that are important to you as well. But it's also about the ideals that these places embody for us. So ideals such as a sense of justice, fairness and equity, those kinds of things. If they're important to us, then they remain to be defended, or we lose them. And I think that's how politics works. A last question then, is this campaign radical? And that's a bit of a funny question, I suppose, that it would be called Radical Newcastle. But, you know, again, back to that point, it's just, on the one hand, it's just a local pool, right? There aren't starving millions here. It's not nuclear, it's not war, it's none of those big picture things, if you like. But in a way, I think it's so important. I think we're engaged in an all-out assault on neoliberalism, if you like, with this campaign and the idea to make that it should be free. Obviously, we're not doing that on our own. Those sorts of things are happening in communities right around the world. But in 10 or 20 years from now, if we look back to this time and think, hey, wow, that's when neoliberalism began to crumble, well, I'll totally take some credit for that. Thank you.